What's up, y'all? It's your girl B Octavia, and I am back with another video. Welcome to my channel. If you are new, my name is B Octavia. I am 25 years old and I'm from Washington, D.C. Today we are going to talk about the wrongly convicted, because people get wrongfully convicted of very serious crimes such as murder, manslaughter, things like that, or even small, somewhat petty things that people would say. This happens in the U.S. and other places, and I think it is a very important discussion to have, to break down, the time that they spent being not just accused, but being convicted of a crime that they know that they didn't do. A lot of people that are in the penitentiary, it is an ongoing theme that a lot of them say, oh, I was wrongfully convicted, this, that, and the fourth. I don't be believing everybody. It depends on the circumstances of the crime. Some things just be like, oh, here's the evidence. You know what I'm saying? And you still saying you didn't do it when, come on now. But in other cases, there is no evidence. There is a witness or two, but that's all the prosecutors rely on. And those testimonies, they are very vague, especially back in the day. They used to be very vague. So just basically convicting somebody with no evidence, little to no witnesses, and nothing else that can tie that person to it, we gonna have to get into that. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody should be in prison for something that they really didn't do. A lot of us can see through a lie, or a few lies, or in my case, a lot of lies. But, when a person is telling the truth and you look over the circumstances of their case individually, without bias of what you think of people in prison, you know what I'm saying? I think that it makes it fair, and it might take a while for the judicial system to get themselves together and figure out how many people are really innocent. But luckily now there are many organizations that help the wrongfully convicted, and it has turned out miraculously. So today we will be talking about Kevin Strickland. Kevin Strickland is a man who was accused of killing 3 people in Kansas City, Missouri. He was convicted wrongfully, but spent 49 years in prison before all evidence was concluded to be no evidence at all to convict Kevin Strickland. This is one of the longest wrongful imprisonment cases known in U.S. history, and one of the longest wrongfully imprisoned cases in Missouri. Kevin Strickland's case, compared to the other person or people that were wrongfully convicted in Missouri, he spent the most time behind bars by a decade. In 1979, Kevin was convicted of triple murder at the age of 18. He was sentenced to 50 years that he definitely had to do behind bars before getting parole. So within that 50 years, it was no chance of parole until after he did that time. So from going in at 18, he would have came out at about 68 years old. He went before a white jury, an all-white jury, at a time where segregation, racial profiling, and discrimination against Black people was at an all-time high, especially in the workforce and in the courtroom. The sole thing that the prosecution relied on as evidence against Kevin was an eyewitness testimony that was eventually recanted and or disproved because the testimony was vague to begin with. Then, at the time of the triple murder, there was no physical evidence that could tie Kevin Strickland to that scene. And even after 40 plus years, there was still no evidence that could be resolved of the triple murder that could link Kevin Strickland to it. And again, there was about 1 or 2 eyewitness testimonies that the prosecution had, But today, to only rely on that, it depends on the circumstance. It depends on what the testimony is, really. I feel like today, that wouldn't be enough to make a strong case. In my eyes today, that wouldn't even be enough for the prosecution to be allowed to have a trial. They relied on one eyewitness testimony that was a traumatized teen at the time who watched one of her friends get killed. That teen matured, and since seeing this triple murder, this person came out saying that police pressured her to pick Mr. Strickland out of a lineup. And, you know, I feel like with the police, they really do be having bias about certain people, whether Mr. Strickland was in a neighborhood that they were familiar with. Police do have a tendency to harass and take names of teenagers or even juveniles, you know what I'm saying? To take their names in, to put them in the system so that just in case, you know what I'm saying? But Lord knows that it's been a lot of police in the urban communities that work those areas that don't care for black people and also have several vendettas that aren't really necessary. And despite analyzing the case and the evidence, there was, of course, some resistance from the prosecutors that were originally on this case. And they really desperately wanted to uphold Mr. Strickland's conviction. Even though the prosecutors fought, I feel like they really fought his release because they don't want to be pinned as a department of discrimination, even though it was very real on their end. They never want to take accountability for their mistakes, meaning the prosecution. So it's not surprising that they would do that. All of the dirty work behind the scenes did not stop the release of Mr. Strickland. In November of 2021, Kevin was exonerated from a Missouri prison just 2 days before Thanksgiving. He spent 43 of the 50 years that he most definitely had to do in the eyes of the law. And that doesn't sit right with me, you know. For them to know after a certain point that he did not do this and it wasn't evidence, it wasn't anything. After a while, it wasn't even any testimony that the prosecution can really still rely on. So, to know that he did most of the time, there was only, what, a year and some change left, or maybe a little bit less than that, that was mandated for him to do because they said that he did it, you know? It don't sit right with me that he still did all of the time. Something else that doesn't sit right with me is the fact that I really did think that if you were wrongfully convicted and the government knows that, the city knows that, the courts know that, why people ain't getting paid because they did the time? Why people ain't getting paid because y'all made a mistake? Kevin Strickland was denied any compensation for the time that he did. When I seen that, when I seen that and then I was reading after that, all I heard was blah, blah, blah. Because why? Y'all made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? As we all do. But that mistake made a man spend most of his life behind bars for something he did not do. And they did not pay him. But you know how dope social media is? Do you know how dope it is to be living in 2022? Once the world knew that they wasn't going to break him off no bread, a GoFundMe was set up for Kevin Strickland, and it was over $1 million in donations. Now, I think that that is so beautiful. You know what I'm saying? I thank everybody that donated, because we can't let the courts win after they done fucked up so bad, you know? And we can't leave a brother hanging. Now, another thing I want to say is, it was another guy that I gotta look it up, and I'm going to talk about it. But he was let out of prison as an old man recently. And it's kind of the same situation. Let out as an old man. He went in when he was very young. You know what I'm saying? And they just pushed him out to nothing. Not giving them no money. They give you some money after you, when you leaving, like a little change in your pocket, maybe to get on the bus, get around for like a few days, whatever. But he didn't get paid either. Doesn't sit right with me. And these men overall are very strong to be able to handle that. You know what I'm saying? To come out into a world that is unknown is a very scary thing. But within the same breath, I do want to say that I can feel that they are grateful to be out, you know. All I can do in this situation moving forward is pray that Kevin Strickland's mental state is straight, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, coming out into a new world with all this technology is very new. It is very scary. But I pray that he has the support of his family, and he does spend the money wisely. You know what I'm saying? Because that type of money we ain't never had before. That could be exhilarating to just blow the cash, but you know, build something. Build a house with some land for your grandchildren. You know what I'm saying? What else? Build several businesses. Just take care of your fam. You know what I'm saying? And they'll take care of you. So that is all I have for today. Please let me know what you feel in the comments below. And I will see y'all in my next video.